Now, Michael Gaine is a Kerry farmer who was last seen 4 weeks ago today in Kenmare.
Now, his disappearance is the subject of a new Virgin Media documentary, and Southern Correspondent Zara King joins us now to discuss this. But before we chat to Zara, let's take a quick look at the documentary.
Mike deserves from us our support. His family deserve our support, and there's no such thing as giving up, because we owe him and we owe his wife and we owe his family a lot more than that.
Between the 20th of March and the 21st of March, in effect, he goes missing, and as yet we can find no trace of him.
How does somebody in 2025, somebody like Mike Gaine, a member of the community, a landowner, a farmer, just disappear?
This is probably one of the largest searches we've conducted in the Kerry division in recent times.
But now people are looking for answers. They still would like the family to have some closure in whatever form it may come.
Good morning to you, Zara. Thank you for joining us this morning. So this airs tonight on Virgin Media 1. Tell us a little bit about Michael.
So Michael Gaine was a farmer who's working, or is a farmer, I should say, who is working in Kerry, just outside Kenmare. His farm is in this very beautiful, sort of picturesque part of the county. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that it's very remote, and it is in some ways, but actually where his farm is based is just a 6-minute drive from the town. So where he was last seen in that centre shop, that centre shop is just a 6-minute drive from where Mike Gaine's farm is based. And he is somebody who is very loved and well liked in his community. He's somebody who was high visibility, I would say, somebody who was seen on a daily basis in his community. The Mart there in Kenmare is one of the sort of main central meeting points for those in the farming community. And even on days where, you know, there mightn't necessarily have been a Mart on, Mike would have called in to speak to some of his friends who were there. And so it's just, for the people of Kenmare, Alan, like this is totally out of character for Mike Gaine to just vanish without a trace.
And Zara, I don't mean to sound callous here, but there have been thousands of people reported missing since January, we'll say. There's 61 people actively missing in this country, and families are always trying to get attention on that. Of course they are, I completely understand that. But this has certainly grabbed imagination. There's an awful lot of people talking about it, whether it's in print, documentary programmes, online. Why is it that it's grabbed the attention like you wish all disappearances would?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the question we're in that I have asked the Justice Minister, I've asked the Garda Commissioner, I've asked the investigating officer in Killarney. What is so different about this missing persons case that it has been given the resources like this? It's not every day that you would see the Defence Forces being called in the search for somebody. So you're right, it is different. There is something different about this. But what that actually is not clear. And it is frustrating for the public who are asking what's going on. But we don't know is the truth. We don't know what's going on. The Gardaí don't seem to know what's going on. They're saying themselves we're now 4 weeks on today since Mike Gaine was last seen, and they have followed up on more than 200 inquiries. But the Garda Commissioner confirmed to me at the HSI conference on Wednesday that there is no leads. On Tuesday, she said there's no leads. There's nothing to give them any indication that there is something they are following. You know, we asked that question many times. Is foul play suspected in this case? Gardaí have not ruled in or ruled out foul play. We've asked, have Gardaí contacted any international policing authorities in relation to this, and they said they haven't had cause to do so at this point. So it's difficult to imagine in 2025, in an era when we have never been more connected, never been more contactable, that somebody could vanish without a trace.
Yeah, and so can you give us the timeline of events on the day that he went missing? What was that day like?
So the official timeline, which is being put to the public from Gardaí, is this sighting in the centre. It's 9:58 a.m. He goes into the centre in Kenmare. He buys phone credit. And actually, the Garda Commissioner brought up something the other day, which seemed a bit unusual at the press conference, where he said, you know, I'm really conscious of people, you know, talking about the day that he went missing. I don't want misinformation being spread. And we said, what do you mean by that, Commissioner? And he made a point about how some of the reporting had suggested that Mike Gaine had bought a sandwich in the centre shop. And he said, actually, that wasn't true. Mike Gaine hadn't bought a sandwich in the centre shop. So there were small details that for some reason you would think, how is that relevant? But he seemed to think, or the Commissioner seemed to think, that that was important to point out to people that that wasn't actually true, and that, you know, he was afraid that that would impact maybe people's memory or jogging their memory. So he buys the phone credit in the centre and he leaves the centre shop, and that's the last known sighting of Mike Gaine. His car turns up in his farmyard, as I say, a 6-minute drive from the centre. Now, I have spoken to farmers who say they saw Mike Gaine in the Mart at around midday that day. That's a question that we put to Gardaí, and they have been reluctant to sort of put that on the timeline, because CCTV footage from the marsh was searched from that time and there was no trace of Mike on that CCTV footage. However, there are farmers that I've spoken to as recently as yesterday who say, I definitely saw Mike in the marsh at 12 o'clock that day. Now, the problem here, I suppose the difficulty here is that, it wouldn't have been unusual for somebody like Mike Gaine, a farmer working during lambing season, to, be out working overnight, not to come home overnight because it's the nature of the work that he does. So the alarm wasn't raised till the following morning because, again, not unusual for him not to be home that night. So in reality, there's roughly around a 24-hour period from that 12 o'clock sighting in the marsh to the next morning when Mike Gaine is reported missing, where Mike Gaine is unaccounted for.
Zara, kind of thinking, because he has there's a 1,000-acre farm around Moll's Gap where they have the search, where they're and that's no small farm. That is a very big farm. No. But in this day and age, when you're talking about disappearances, and you mentioned phone credit there, your mind automatically goes to towers and pinging off towers and mobile phone data, even if it is a pay-as-you-go phone. What's going on there?
Well, Maureen, the phone was found in his Jeep, you see, so he doesn't have his phone on him. So his phone was found in the car when the car was found in the yard. His wallet was in the car. His belongings were in the car. So there is no mobile phone on him. So this is a big factor in all of this. I mean, when we talk about the terrain and the land, I spoke to in the documentary one of the searchers from SARDA, which is the Search and Rescue Dog Association, and they were explaining to us how that works in terms of sending the dogs in, searching for a scent. And they were saying that, after 4 weeks, it is over 1,000 acres. I accept that it's a wide space, but they're saying after 4 weeks and sending dogs in, that they believe that if Mike was at the farm, he would have been found by now.
So is there any talk of then extending the search?
Good question, Alan. No talk of extending it that I'm aware of. And there has been questions asked about scaling it back because naturally after 4 weeks you would wonder, are they considering scaling it back? The Commissioner said to us so earlier in the week that there's no conversations about scaling it back. At this point, he says we are determined to find Michael Gaine. We're determined to get to the bottom of what has happened. Michael Healy-Rae, the Junior Minister for Agriculture, who's obviously a Kerry TD, reiterated that as well and echoed those sentiments and said that they owe it to Michael's family to give it every possible chance they can to find him. And, the reality is for the people of Kenmare, it's difficult to have the likes of ourselves, journalists and media, still hanging around week after week. When you cover stories like this, the first week or two, it's, people accept that you're there. It becomes more challenging as time goes on. But I do think broadly the locals do appreciate this story being kept in the headlines. They accept that Mike's image being on national television this morning here on the news, on the newspapers, it keeps people's memories jogged. And I hope that the documentary will do that. I hope that people watching tonight might think of something, they might have seen something. Like Kenmare is a tourist destination. Maybe you were out for a drive in Moll's Gap on Thursday the 20th. Maybe you didn't think you saw anything, but jog your memory, retrace your steps. Gardaí are just desperate for it. There could be a tiny nugget of information that might seem insignificant to the person who has that information that might really be a breakthrough in this.
We know that the family have requested privacy. We can just think of them at this absolutely horrendous time. Zara, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Zara King, Southern Correspondent. An Garda Síochána continues to appeal to any person who may have any information, as Zara said, on Michael's whereabouts. You can contact the Killarney Garda Station or the Garda Confidential line. That is at 1800 666 111, or any Garda station indeed.
Yes, and of course that documentary is on Virgin Media 1 and Virgin Media Play tonight at 8:30.
Yeah, the search for Michael Gaine.